All right. What do you got for me tonight, Willem?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I can see the audio feed, but I hope you can hear me. So I just watched Joe Rogan's show, and
Hmm.
he read an interesting statistic that in the US, in North America, like only like 2/3 of the guys refers to themselves as single, but only
Hmm.
1/3 of women refer to themselves as single.
Hmm.
So I want to know if you find it interesting and what it tells you about the dating marketplace.
Yeah, I was gonna save this maybe for a future podcast and deal with it then, but we can talk about it right now briefly. So there's a study that came out that basically says that um, only 1/3 of men are essentially sexually active, and more than 2/3 of women are sexually active. So
So that correlates exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you would think that if so many women are sexually active and so few men are, that they're sharing men, right? So that means
Mm,
that men are dating more than one woman simultaneously. So the higher value guys would, we could postulate that the higher value guys are dating multiple women. And these women are therefore sharing the higher value guys, which is why they're reporting so few men being intimate and so many women being intimate. And let's be honest, we know this is true throughout history anyway. Like, the vast majority of men have not passed down their seed. They did not reproduce. Their DNA was a biological dead end, right? Like, I can't remember what the numbers were, but something like 80% of men throughout history have not reproduced and passed on the seed. But something like 80% of women have, right? So that means that these women are having children with men that they're sharing essentially. So it's very consistent with that. The other thing too, though, is that I think we're in a different time where the definition of like single isn't quite clear. You know what I mean? Because that's what the survey was, right? Like, are you single, or, are you seeing somebody? And women will say, yeah, like I'm seeing somebody, but they may not know that the somebody that they're seeing is seeing a bunch of other people, or vice versa, as well too, because the definitions and the lines that were consistent 30, 40 years ago are totally different today, right? Like, we live in the most promiscuous time in history. So
exactly, exactly. That's completely right. The last sentence.
yeah, so there's a
I
lot.
completely agree.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack with that. I mean, I'd like to see how they conducted the study. I mean, I'll take some time and I'll try to dive a little bit more in the details and get into it. But yeah, I've seen the same thing that you're talking about. It's been covered around the internet now.
Would you say it's the maybe the beginning of a downfall for the West or no? Because of that.
The beginning of the downfall is like the downfall is happening. So let's be honest. Like, we're not on society's not on a rise, in my opinion. The downfall's been happening on, for a while. Uh, in the chat, you guys let me know when you think the downfall began. Um, was there a moment? Was there something? Was there an event in history? Was there legislation? Was there some law that passed? I think a lot of the guys out there that are really tuned in and might have even spent some time consuming some content around repealing the 19th Amendment. Have you heard this argument?
Repealing the 19th and I think the amendment. Not really.
I don't know what the 19th Amendment specifically states. Some people will say in the chat right now, like I'm seeing birth control pop up, hormonal birth control, would have been a significant contributor to the decline. But I think one of the arguments that makes the most sense is repealing the 19th, because apparently this amendment, and I don't know when this was made, I think it was like the early 1900s, maybe the late 1800s, allowed women to enter the voting system. And the voting system in the past comprised of people that had um, assets, like had land, like real estate. Like, you couldn't vote unless you had land and you paid taxes.
Hmm.
So if you
Hmm.
didn't have land, you didn't pay taxes, your opinion didn't matter.
But
And
Rich, if you don't support illegal immigrants voting without ID, then you are a fascist bigot.
got it. But this is where we are today.
Hmm.
But we're
Hmm.
talking about this 19th Amendment, which is here. Let me pull it up on the internet real quick.
Yeah,
Somebody
you could
says
say we
Moff
progressed.
says Moff says 1920 in the live chat. Let me just do a quick Google search. When was the 19th Amendment passed.
We progressed.
Approved by the Senate in June 4th, 1919, and ratified August 1920. So Moff's right. Well done with your American history, my friend. Thank you. So in 1920, they passed an amendment in legislation to allow people that didn't own real estate or contribute to the tax system, from what I understand, to vote. I might be butchering the details of that. I mean, I'd have to dive into it specifically, but I would say that where we pivoted and said, look, people that had skin in the game, that did work, that own land, that pay taxes, were able to cast a vote and decide what happened with the taxpayers' money. Because today we live in an environment where people can cast a vote that aren't citizens, that don't even live here, like we've seen,
That
like
don't
the
even
voter
have
fraud,
ID.
that
That
don't even
don't even
have
have
ID,
ID.
that can decide what happens with taxpayers' money. So you can have a flood of people come in that have never contributed to a tax system, that don't own land, that don't pay property taxes, may not have ever had a job, offer an opinion on what to do with taxpayers' money, which is why the direction we've headed in is really, turned into like a socialist sort of, environment where people with no skin in the game are making decisions about what happens with the money that I make when they put nothing into the system. And then
There
they
was
make decisions to take more of my money unilaterally without my consent. So I don't think the decline has been happening the last couple of years. It seems like this decline started a long time ago, in my
there
opinion.
was a whole episode of John Oliver where he was talking how people who believe that you should show ID to vote are bigots and racists.
Well, that's what they do when they don't get their way. They just throw a little hissy fit and they have a spaz and they make up stuff, and they like these authoritarians automatically default to bigotry, racist, Islamophobe. This is what Justin Trudeau did when all the truckers went to Ottawa, right? He called it, and the funny thing was a lot of the truckers that went to Ottawa were Sikhs. Like a lot of the Canadian truckers we have here are like cultural Sikhs. Like they were setting up tents and giving food out to everybody, but he was calling them all racist, bigots, xenophobes, Islamophobes, like every phobe under, how this is a system that they use because they don't have an argument, so they just point and sputter like cowards. Anyway, does that make sense?
Yes, and what you said about that exactly. You remember how there were a few articles here and there about you in the shadow picture, and you in a negative light. You read something from Swedish newspaper. Have you noticed how those articles that depicted you or anybody else, they never comment on any argument. They just call you a misogynist.
Well,
there's never anything.
I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, man. I don't even read news articles. Sometimes people send stuff to me. I don't even bother translating. I don't care. It's always the same thing. It's always the same
but it's
nonsense.
interesting. It's interesting how they never want to dismantle any of your arguments because
they can't.
Your arguments. Yeah, they can't exactly. Your arguments are almost always right. They don't even want to mention them. They just call you a misogynist.
And how long have I, been running this podcast show, and how many call-ins have I had? They never call in. They never want to argue with me. They never have anything that they want to say. All they do is they hide in the shadows like a little coward, and they write their little blogs. They do little tweets because that's what they do.
Okay, I want to let other guys speak. So
absolutely, guys. If you have a better solution, thanks, Willem. I'm going to pull you out, guys. If you have a better solution to something that I've talked about, you think I'm wrong, come on the show. Let's hear what your better solution is. Tell me. I'd love to hear it. Let's do it. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here and pin down below in the top comment. You'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.